I don't know if you can see behind me, but that's one of my fruit trees. I have 9 fruit trees that got planted today in our new orchard, and I could not be more grateful. Hey friends, welcome back to my channel. I am so glad that you're here because today is part 2 of our new fruit tree orchard journey on the homestead. And so if you are new here, y'all, we just recently put fruit trees on our homestead, creating our own orchard. I'm just so excited about it. And so if you missed the first video, I will pop it up here so you can kind of see how we got here until today. And if you've been here before and you saw the video, thank you guys so much for all of your comments, for your well wishes, your support, all of that good stuff. And thank you for continuing to come back to my videos. Well, today is another exciting video because today, y'all, the first set of fruit trees get in the ground. In the ground, not in a container, but in the ground. And I gotta tell you this testimony of how God works. So if you saw the previous video where we talked about buying our fruit trees, what we bought, why we bought it, where we bought them from, all of that is in that video. You know, in the video I say, and you saw us put the fruit trees in containers. You saw us do that, right? And on that video, I talked about how we were going to keep them in containers until the spring, and then we were going to try to plant them ourselves, you know, and all of that good stuff. And I was talking about, I think I talked about our tractor being down and just didn't really have the resources right now to get them in the ground. But let me tell you how God works. Okay, so if you're new here, yes, I am a Christian. I'm actually the wife of a minister, so that's double whammy, right? So yes, I talk about God on my channel. And so if that is uncomfortable for you, I pray that it's not. I pray that it's not. Let me tell you how this works. So in my previous video, I showed you that we had gotten fruit trees from 3 companies: Stark Bros, Online Orchards, and Fast Growing Trees. At the time of that video, my order from Stark Bros had not shown up yet, so you only got a chance to see the things from Online Orchards and Fast Growing Trees because the Stark Bros order got delayed before we finished that video. But I talked about those 3 companies and the different varieties that we did. Well, what happened is that a friend of mine told me about a local person in my area that was selling fruit trees at a very, very inexpensive price compared to what I had bought my fruit trees for. So I reached out to this gentleman that was in my area. He had something on Facebook Marketplace saying that he was selling fruit trees, and the price that he advertised was $25, which is, I'm like, man, that is super, super cheap. So my husband and I went by there, and me and the guy talked on Facebook Marketplace. You know, I was asking, you know, quite a few questions, wanted to see what he had in his inventory and kind of shifted from day to day. Anyway, long story short, my husband and I went by his place, and he had $25 fruit trees that were like in a 5 or 10 gallon, container or bucket. And then he also had some $45 fruit trees that were in a 15 gallon. So they were much, much bigger. And when I talked to him about the difference in price in terms of yield or productivity or how fast they would mature, he was just saying that the ones that are bigger are about 1.5 years ahead of the ones that are smaller. So of course I want fruit faster because, like many of you, that's the thing with fruit trees. It's not like growing vegetables. And with vegetables, most vegetables that you grow, you're gonna get a return that season. Well, with fruit trees, it's not that way. You put them in the ground and there is a waiting period. It could be anywhere from 5 to 7 years before you're able to actually enjoy the fruit of your labor. And so anything that is going to get me fruit faster, I was willing to spend the $45 for. So anyway, we picked out 2 trees from him at the $45 rate. So we got a Santa Rosa plum, and then we also got a Bartlett pear. And the trees, especially the Bartlett pear, looked absolutely beautiful. Like tall, big leaves, it looked very, very good. And this guy actually has a landscape business, and so he buys fruit trees wholesale because he's a landscaper, so he puts in fruit trees, you know, for his clients and things like that. And so we bought those 2, and then there was another section where the $25 ones were, and I ended up picking out a Honeycrisp on the $25 section. And so that's kind of how it started. Now, let me tell you something else. The night before, I had been doing research on fruit trees because I'm like just trying to soak up all the information that I can and reading a lot. And I had read that crab apples are, it said if you're going to create an orchard, make sure that you have a crab apple. I never had a crab apple, didn't even know what they look like. And I'm like, ooh, it's real pretty because, you know, I love the way something looks now. I love something cute. And so the colors are supposed to be like this purplish, reddish. It puts on really pretty foliage. But what I had read is that crab apples are great pollinators. And so this article that I was reading was saying, hey, if you're going to do an orchard, make sure that you have a crab apple. And so when I went over to this other side where this guy had the $25 fruit trees, he had a crab apple. And I was like, oh man, I just read about that. And out of his mouth, he said, oh yeah, they're great for pollination. You want to get one of those. And I was like, yes, I do. And so we added that to the mix, right? So in my mind, okay, I was leaving there with 4 trees. I had the Santa Rosa pear, the Santa Rosa plum, the Bartlett pear, the Honeycrisp, and then the crab apple. And so my background is HR. So I have an HR business. And so when it comes to talking to people, I mean, that's what I've done for a living for the last literally, 30 years, 28 years. And so I don't have a problem with talking to people. And I really try to build relationships. Like, people who know me know that's what I try to do. I try to build relationships. And so I was just talking to him about his business. Anyway, long story short, you don't want all them details. But long story short, he was saying that, you know, he puts in fruit trees for other people. So I'm like, well, for his clients. I said, well, do you do fruit trees for just people? He was like, yeah. And so he told me the price. I was like, say what? Say what? I'm like, okay. And so I was thinking, okay, if my husband and I do it, he's going to have to rent a tractor to put his auger on to dig the trees, blah, 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 blah. It was going to be a whole ordeal if we did not want to do them manually ourselves. And my husband was not trying to sign up to do it manually just right now, just because we got a whole another set of priorities right now that we need to get done before it gets cold. You know, closing out the summer garden, transition to fall, like, as you know, a lot of stuff. So that's why we had decided to wait to put the fruit trees in the ground in the spring. But when this guy said, hey, yeah, I'll do it, and he gave us a really good price, my husband's like, we might as well just let him do it. And then if that was not enough, he said, well, where do you live? I told him. He's like, oh, I'm going to actually be passing by your area tomorrow. If you want, I can do them tomorrow. What? So I said, yes. And so I said, well, do you want me to pay you now? He said, no, pay me when I come, which was right up my alley. Because again, I just met this guy. And so I really didn't want to pay my money for fruit trees. And then what if he doesn't show up with my fruit trees, right? But I didn't think that was going to be the case. But he's like, no, you just pay me when I get there. Even better. So the next day, which was today, it was raining, like just cats and dogs this morning, which it was not supposed to. So I'm thinking, oh, I'm not going to get my orchard today. But he called and came exactly when he said he would. The rain had cleared up, and I actually had a break in my schedule. So this was a very busy day for me from a work perspective. I had interviews and meetings pretty much all day, and I had blocks in between. And so the biggest block I had was like an hour and a half. Don't you know that he showed up in that block of an hour and a half? When I tell you that God cares about the details that you care about, he cares about the very small details. And I had prayed this one. I was like, Lord, I need to be available when this guy comes, because of course I want to make sure that they're placed right. I want to make sure that we know where they're being placed, like all the things. And my husband and I had kind of walked the land again last night to kind of figure out where we wanted the first tree to start and all of that good stuff. And so I'm like, can my husband handle it? Yes, but I wanted to be on the scene. And God allowed me to be on the scene. So y'all, I don't know if you can see behind me, but that's one of my fruit trees. I have 9 fruit trees that got planted today in our new orchard. And I could not be more grateful. So very grateful, because it's more than just we got fruit trees in the ground. What I saw was God's specific handiwork towards me. God knows you. He knows your personality. He knows what you like. He knows what makes you tick. He knows what makes you thrive. And what I see was literally a father who knows how to give good gifts to his children. And he did it just for me. And I'm so grateful, because literally, y'all, from proof of concept until today, when I say proof of concept, I have been wanting fruit trees for the last 2 to 3 years, right? But when I made a decision, it was actually 3 to 4 weeks ago. I need to go and look at the date when I made, like, I'm doing it. And that night or the next night was the night that I ordered the first fruit tree. That was no more than 4 weeks ago. I think it was 3 weeks ago, if I'm being honest. I got to go back and look at the calendar. I ordered the first fruit tree. Then I put my foot in the water. I executed. I spent money. I put my money where my mouth was. And literally in that 3 weeks, God has now blessed where my fruit trees are actually in the ground. I didn't even have to wait until the spring. It may seem like not a big deal to you, but it's a huge deal to me. But I'm going to stop yapping so I can show you the fruit trees. So I'm going to take you back to earlier today, when they showed up and them putting the fruit trees in the ground. And I will voice it. It was chaotic, not chaotic in a bad way, but it was a lot going on. And so I wasn't able to do any video talking while it was happening. We were just trying to make sure that we got everything, done and all that. So I will show you some footage of them getting the trees in the ground. And then after that video, we will walk through and I will show you what we did, what is where, and what we still have left to do. So it was such a blessing that not only is the God going to put the trees in the ground that I bought from him, but he's also going to put the trees in the ground that I had bought from other vendors. So if you saw in that previous video, I bought trees from fast growing trees as well as online orchards that have already come in. And so here they are unloading their truck with the trees that they bought for me. And then my husband is taking the trees out of the high tunnel so that they can plant those as well. So we didn't really have a lot of time to plan because literally we went and saw this guy the day before and bought his trees, and then the next day he was out here. So my husband and I had walked the property the night before and was just generally talking about the area, but we did not necessarily determine which tree was going to go where. It just got late and it just didn't happen. And so that next morning, which is today, I actually, kind of woke up and was trying to think, okay, where do I want the trees to go? And I'm looking up space and I'm looking up all these things, but it really was an in the moment type of thing. You know how when something happens and you're like, hey, I need to capitalize on this. It was one of those moments like, hey, let me get this help while I have it. They're going to do it a lot quicker and get it done quicker than my husband and I can at this moment. So we're just trying to kind of figure it out in the fly of the moment. Now, is that the best way to do it? Absolutely not. But there was a lot of excitement, a lot of urgency, and just a lot going on at one time. And again, that's a decision that we kind of made. So once we kind of determined where things were going to go, it was time to start placing the trees. Now, one of the things that was a surprise to both my husband and I is that even with all this land, you think you have a lot of space, and then we quickly ran out of space with the way that we spaced the trees. And then also, we had talked about in a previous video kind of going up this hill or incline to the right side of the screen, but the guy told us that he didn't think that would be a good idea to go up that high just because of the water runoff. And so we had to stop. Essentially, we could not go up as far as we had planned, which cut out a lot of space. So we placed the trees. And so the spacing that we used was a very conservative. And again, once I put the trees in the ground, and of course, I've been doing more research, reading more books, watching YouTube and all that, I think we could have placed the trees closer together. But obviously, again, we're new at this. So we did a spacing of about 25 feet apart for the standard size trees. And then for those that were dwarf, we did about 10 feet apart. Now that's what Google said. So that's kind of what we did. But I've seen many orchards, obviously, since I've been looking since this video, and they placed them closer together. But anyway, I don't know that it's wrong, but I think we could have maybe capitalized on the space a little bit better. Now, that means we could put something in between that spacing, but I think I would rather have too much space than not enough space, because once it's not enough space and you're kind of stuck. Even with too much space, I could put something in between, like a dwarf tree maybe, or it'll just be open. It'll just have plenty of room to grow. So I think that is a better problem to have than not enough space at all between the trees. So by the time that you're actually seeing this video, it is, of course, it happened, you know, a week or two ago, because I batch content and try to stay a couple of weeks ahead. And so when I played the first video that you saw last week about us just buying the fruit trees, this was already done. So I know that I received a lot of suggestions in that video, but this part was already done because it happened so fast. But I've tried to kind of go back and just, as I think about it, give myself grace, because as I continue to learn more by reading books and consuming content on YouTube, there's some things that we probably missed in this. But when I think about when I first started gardening, one of the things that I did that I didn't know any better was I put mint in one of my beds. I had no idea until later. Now, fortunately for me, by the time I heard that you were supposed to do mint, I was able to actually get the mint out of the bed and put it in a container. So it wasn't that far gone. But this is the equivalent. You know, you make a mistake because you don't know, just out of ignorance, but you just keep going and you keep learning. And most things you can reverse. Now, I don't know if that comes the same with fruit trees, but hey, you live and you learn. So as you can see, they immediately got to work with digging holes. Now, we thought they were going to use some equipment, but they didn't. They just used old manual shovels, which, yeah, I guess we could have did that, but trust me, they did it a lot quicker than my husband and I could have done. So all in all, they got all 9 trees in the ground literally within an hour. So it did not take long whatsoever, but they're digging up the ground. And so it was a male and a female. They kind of worked together. This was the easiest, this was the most difficult hole, this one right here. There was like rock there, so it took quite a bit of time to get a hole right here and to dig. So it took definitely some extra manpower. They even broke a shovel trying to get this hole dug. But for the most part, she did a lot of the smaller holes and he did the bigger ones. And the trees that we bought from them were a little bit more established versus the ones that I had ordered online. Some of them were not as established, so it was I had up potted them, but when you take it out of the pot, it was a smaller root ball. So it's much, much more easier to plant. So again, it happened in terms of the stuff getting in the ground. It happened much quicker than I anticipated. So we had to put a quick plan together around where everything was going to go. And we were looking up spacing and all of that good stuff. So let me kind of walk you through the orchard, okay? The orchard, and show you what is planted where, and our thought process on what we did, and then what we still have left to do. So let's start at the bottom here, which is, you can see the garden is there. And then we'll work our way up and then we'll come back down. Okay, so this is an overall view. Obviously you can't see much from this vantage point because they're small. But let's start with this first row. So right now we have 2 rows. So this first tree right here is our, this is the apple tree row. And so we have 4 apples. So this right here is Fuji. This is a 4 to 5 foot Fuji. And what we did was we spaced everything 20 to 25 feet apart. Because most of these are standard trees. For the dwarf trees, we did like a 10 feet spacing And then also we wanted to avoid power lines and made sure that we were a good distance away from the power lines, at least 25 feet, but really more than that for most of these. So this is the Fuji tree. And then when I walk up here, this right here is a Golden Delicious. You can see that there. And again, you're going to see various heights because I bought them at various heights. So this first tree there, the Fuji, I bought from Fast Growing Trees. And I think that's a 4 to 5 foot height. This is a 3 to 4 foot height. This is also from Fast Growing Trees, if I'm not mistaken. Yep. And then we could keep walking up this way. This is a Honeycrisp. So this is the one that I got from the local guy that I told you about, the one that came and actually put the trees in. That's a Honeycrisp. And then we keep walking up the hill, or towards the hill here. And it may look like we're up on a hill, but we're not really. I'm gonna turn around so you can see the vantage point. But we tried to stop like right in here when we're talking about hill or slope, because we were originally going to go up here, but he was saying that you don't want your water to drain off. It's just going to get like a muddy mess with the drop off. But here is our crabapple. You can see what it's going to look like when it gets foliage. And this is what the crabapple itself looks like. Now, he says you don't really eat crab apples, which is fine. It's just really good for pollination. But you can see the way that looks. And then here we did go up a little bit further for this one just because we wanted to get it on the apple row. And then this one is the Gala, and this is a dwarf. You can see that there. And then look at that new growth. So I'm standing at the top of this row, so to speak, so you can see where we are in relation to the garden and the greenhouse. So when I walk over this way, you can see the last tree stops here versus the apple trees go up a little ways there. So this right here is a Bartlett pear. This is a dwarf tree. This is the one that I got from Online Orchards. When I first opened it, if you saw in the video and you were paying attention, it didn't have much on it, but I already have some new growth there and it growing, so that's good. And then this one is the $45 tree that I got from the local person. This is a Bartlett pear. Look how tall it is and just look how full it is. That's a Bartlett pear. Now we got a whole big ant pile, fire ant pile right there, but that's okay. But you can see how good that looks. And then walking down here are our two plum trees. So this is a Santa Rosa. This is a regular size tree, if I'm not mistaken. This is from Online Orchards as well. And then this one here is one of the $45 ones that I got from him. You can see it's much bigger, much more established. It does have quite a bit of leaves on it. And like I said, much more established. So that is a total of 9 trees. So on the row behind me, we have the 2 pear and the 2 plum. Now the Santa Rosa plum says that it's self-pollinating, but because you'll get more from what I read and what I've been told if you have another one that's just like it. So you'll get more production, 75% more production I hear, just by having a second one. So that's why we bought another one from him. Now the Bartlett pear, as I was doing some research later on this afternoon, I realized that I probably should have gotten a different variety of pear than 2 Bartlett pears based on what I'm reading, but it is what it is. I'm bound to make some mistakes. And again, I don't know that it's gonna do anything except maybe not produce as much because it doesn't have a different variety of pear right beside it. I don't know. I guess we'll find out. Now the dwarf one is, you know, I could take it up out of the ground even though it's been planted. I could do that, but for now I'm gonna leave it. And you guys give me your comments and thoughts and let me know. And again, we don't eat a ton of pears. I only really got the second one it was just so beautiful. Like, it was just absolutely beautiful and so established, is why I bought one from him, because I already had the dwarf one. But my husband's like, well, maybe we don't eat pears a lot because we don't have access to them. And I'm like, true, that could be. But I don't normally buy them from the store when it's, pear season. But hey, that's okay. We can always sell the fruit too. And so maybe I need to get another variety of pear. But then on the apple row, we have, like I said, the 4 different kinds of apples. We eat a ton of, I love apples, and there's many ways that I can use apples. So we have a Golden Delicious, which that's the variety I use for all of like my pies and cobblers. And I have done applesauce from that. But of course, when you're doing applesauce, it's good to have a mix. But I love Honeycrisp apples, Fuji, and Gala. So I'm really excited about that row as well. Now, what you don't see are my peach trees. My peach trees are not here. I already ordered those from Stark Bros, and I ordered a Red Haven as well as I think it's Alberta is what I ordered. They have been delayed, and so they're not here yet. But and then the guy who came today, he's gonna have another Red Haven. He said it does really, really well in our area and it's really popular. And he said that they tend to, what did he say? What's not the word pollinate? They mature later on in the season versus some of the other peaches. And so something about if you have a bad winter and bad frost, they have a chance to rebound. I didn't understand it all, but okay, sounds good. And so I'm thinking about getting another Red Haven from him. So that would give me 3 peach trees, 2 Red Havens and 1 Alberta. But okay, where to put it? Because what we try to do, again, with the spacing, everything I read said, try to do 20 to 25 feet. And so when we were walking the land before, I didn't know that part yet. And so we were really thinking, number one, we could just go on up the hill. But the guy who came today, he said, I wouldn't go up the hill just because of the water and the drainage. Y'all let me know what you think about that, or if that's true, because I don't know. And so that kind of cut off an area that we thought we were going to use. Then also we're trying to stay 25 feet away from the power line, so that as the trees, it'll be a while before they're, at maturity and growing big, but you don't want them, that close to the power lines and being an impediment and all that stuff. But we may be able to plant on the other side of the power line, which would be closer to my driveway. I don't quite know yet if I want that. Now, it's not like we short on land, but I really wanted to kind of keep everything together. But we're thinking about another space where the peaches can go once they get here. So that is something to think about. But let me know your thoughts on the peaches. Let me turn the camera around and show you some possible areas, and you guys put your comments down below of any suggestions that you have. So we could possibly do some peach trees, or any kind of trees for that matter, on the other side to the left of these power lines here. That could be an option. Or we thought about doing something up closer to the house, so on the left side of my house, but up a way. So if you can see kind of where those trees are there, maybe something in here could be an option. That's my house. Of course, it looks closer than what it really is, but somewhere in there, maybe we could put some peach trees. I don't know, just a thought. But yeah, we're still kind of thinking through that. So the next step would be obviously to get our peach trees in the ground once they arrive. And depending on when they arrive, we may again do that now in the fall, or we may wait until the spring. But the other thing is our berries. So right now we have some blueberries, and I think we got a couple of more coming of where to put our berry bushes. And I'm thinking I want to put them in a different space than these fruit trees, because I think the soil needs to be different in terms of, I think its acidity is different for the blueberries. And then also I have some elderberries as well. So I'm excited to maybe be able to grow our own elderberries on the property, which will be fantastic because of course we sell elderberry syrup. And right now we're outsourcing the elderberries. So we got to put our elderberries somewhere, and our blueberry bushes. We're also thinking about getting grapevines, which will need to be on a trellis. And then I'm also thinking about getting some blackberries and raspberries. I know. You're thinking, girl, you had zero fruit, and now you doing a whole orchard and am. So now I don't like raspberries and I don't like blackberries, but somebody said that when you grow them yourself, they taste different and better. And that is true when you grow your own vegetables. But if nothing else, we can use them for smoothies because we do like them in smoothies, in like a berry mix. So it wouldn't necessarily go to waste if we didn't like them to eat. But I gotta imagine, and I don't like hate them, like I'd never buy them. And they just taste okay. They're not like real sweet or anything like that. So, but I want to try growing some, not a lot, but maybe a couple. And so I know that the blackberries and the raspberries, I think if I'm not mistaken, they have to be trellised, almost like the grapevines do. And then of course the blueberry bushes and the elderberry bushes would be, you know, kind of in the ground, or a container, but I want them in the ground. So let me show you the place that we're thinking about doing for that. Okay, so my husband's gonna kind of explain what he's thinking about when it comes to the berries and where we might put them.
So what we were thinking about doing, this space right here that's already cut is somewhere around 5, maybe 5+ feet. So we're thinking about going over 5 more feet and cutting the grass and, you know, getting it all the way down to the ground and then putting some paper down. But the idea is to put all of our vines in this area and take this fence out and put it on the other side and just expand the whole area. And so we would have enough space to plant vines, trellis them, however we, you know, decide to trellis them, and they would have space to just kind of grow and also be protected. Even though we haven't seen the deer come in this area, we figure that if we plant something this close to the trees, they definitely might be tempted to come and eat. So we are going to expand this part of the garden out by taking the fence out and then, you know, expanding it and then putting the rest of the fence around it, just to keep everything safe and make certain that they don't start figuring out that they can come and eat the fruit of the vine. So we're going to put it over here. Should be enough space for all of the vines. We've been talking about a few vines, but I have a feeling, a sneaky suspicion that a few vines are going to turn into a lot of vines. And so I want to make certain that we got a lot of space to accommodate what's planned and what is coming.
Okay, so honey, so the bushes will be like the elderberry and the blueberries don't need a vine. So they will be in the ground.
Yeah.
And then the other stuff will be on a vine. So do you have a thought about where the bushes would go in relation to the vines, or what are you thinking?
I don't really have a thought process on that just yet. I don't think it really matters. I think it's more personal preference and the aesthetic of it. Do we want the bushes all together, the vines all together, or we want to kind of mix it up? I don't have a particular preference. And so to me, I want to see how big the bushes get versus how much trellising we'll need for the others. And so we'll kind of, I figure we could talk about that and walk through seeing exactly what it would look like and just kind of go from there.
Okay, guys, so you kind of heard the plan. Obviously, it's subject to change, but I would love to know your thoughts and suggestions. If you're a visual person and kind of spot like, hey, give me some ideas and thoughts about what you think about what we've already done and what we have left to do. So definitely more to come on the orchard, but y'all, we are making good progress. So we got our fruit trees on the first video. On this video, we were able to get 9 of them in. We're still waiting on more fruit trees to come, and so it will definitely evolve and change over time, and I will make sure to keep you posted. I cannot wait to hear your suggestions, your comments, and all of that good stuff. I appreciate you guys. If you have not subscribed to this channel, what are you waiting on? I would love for you to subscribe and be a part of this community, because it truly is not just my journey, but I'm also encouraging you to have your own journey. This is all a journey. I would like for us to do it together. I'll see you next time, friend.